I am always interested about life lessons I can learn. I especially enjoy it when it's God's creatures that I learn these lessons from. So today, I want to share with you what I learned about business raising chickens. As an introduction, I want to share basically how we got into chickens to begin with. At the time, we were trying to figure out what the Lord had for our lives. We had trained to be missionaries, but didn't have any real direction. So I mentioned it to my husband. Well, instead of just sitting here doing nothing, I'm going to buy some chickens. So we went ahead and got a few small chickens, and I do mean small because they were the Bantam hens. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought, well, that other than they are small and the area that we were at, although it was quite a big area, I was looking at putting them in a chicken tractor. And if you don't know what that is, well, go ahead and Google it. It's a lot of fun to create your own chicken tractor. And it really gave me an opportunity to learn some things because where we were at, living in Texas, there was a lot of bartering that could take place, and so there was ways to really think about how you were either going to barter or sell and stuff like that. And eventually, I did get a few larger chickens, which I ended up trading and bartering and stuff. So in the process, this became somewhat of I would say, a hobby in many ways, but it also taught me lessons about business. And of course, one of the first lessons I learned was count the cost. And we've all heard the expression, don't count your chickens before they hatch. We did get an incubator and hatch out chicks, and we realized very quickly you don't count your chickens. In fact, one of the first chicks had problems and didn't survive. But you do want to count the cost. You do want to evaluate how much you're putting into your business. And one of the things that you may not even think about doing, which is very, very important, count the loss. And one of the things that I would do, eventually I had purchased about a dozen chicks. And in that price, I evaluated how much I paid for them. And immediately, when I bought my first bag of feed, and in my mind and my thinking, that's how much the chicks are valued, although I couldn't sell them at that. Eventually, it would even out. And I had it like a little system of trying to figure out, counting my costs as I went, because we're talking livestock here, and anything can happen from one week to the next. And it really, sped up my thinking as to how that applies to business. And we there's losses and there's gains, and sometimes when you do your home business, you may not even think about it. So it's important that whether you're doing eBay, whether you're selling things online or selling things locally, that you really keep a good record of your gains and your losses, and even losses that basically, in my case, where I lost the chick, and I figured, well, now my losses have my loss and my price of my chicks. I divided that loss into the remainder of the 11 chicks. And what I was actually doing is evaluating my ROI, my return on my investment, and kind of anticipating it in the long run, raising these chicks to be pullets so that I can eventually sell them as layers. And so if if you take the time to figure out a system where you can kind of gauge your return on your investment and be able to switch if it were at midstream, to compensate for your losses, or to realize, is this the time to just simply stop where you're at, figure out, should you go ahead and just sell. And eventually what I actually did was, I was at a point where the price of the chicks were if I had any further losses, whether at the time the price of food was going up. So that, again, that increased um, my my expenses, and my ROI decreased. And so I decided, well, this is a good time to at least make a little bit of a profit, and so as not to go under in my investment. And so it's important to really evaluate that. So one of the things you want to do is count the cost. Another thing is evaluate your plans. I know, like, I had, it was kind of like one of those things, let's get into raising chickens and stuff. But as time went on, I learned some things about them. I had to evaluate, my plans was to raise chickens, but as I learned, and which I was in a learning process, and really, you're in a learning process in your business constantly. Things change, especially those of you who do online business. Really understand that when you rely on search engine optimization, or you rely on ways that you have gained traffic, and things have changed since then, and you want to um, evaluate your plans as to how you were going to get things accomplished, and figure out if perhaps your plans need to be altered or changed a little bit, and you want to have that flexibility. And so you constantly want to assess, you want to evaluate how your plans are going. And along with that, of course, you're going to bounce it back and forth with your return on your investment. Another thing that I learned was to be creative. I basically started off, I got chickens, and like I said, we lived in a big place, but it was an open place. We had fencing, but there was just big, wide open areas, the neighbors and things like that. So I had to be creative and come up with something that would house the chickens, and I would be able to get them around. And little did I realize that that's a big thing out there. It's called chicken tractors. And in a sense, there were all kinds of designs and things like that. And so I kind of took those ideas and basically used what I had around me, used materials that I had around me. And in my case, it ended up being a cage type thing. I used a Rubbermaid container with a lid cut open for the chickens to lay their eggs in there, and it was portable, so I can move it around. It was very light enough for my children to move around. In business, you feel, before you give up, before you really think you got to shift or quit, or this is not making your investment. You don't want to get scared about the analysis that you're making. You want to realize, okay, what can I do here? How can I be more creative? Whether it's to have ways of getting work done, maybe done for you, to relieve you to other things that you can be more creative, like creating more content, writing more blog posts, while other people can take care of creating your graphics and different things like that. Now, the other thing that I mentioned, and I briefly mentioned it, and this is important to me as a mom. The other thing was I included my children in this whole process. I mentioned that they can move the chicken tractor and stuff like that. This wasn't the first time I've done this, to include my children or make them feel that they were part of what I was doing. And that's something that I highly recommend if you still have children at home, that you include them in your business process. And it could be just the smallest task. I mean, it could be just you're trying to count or add something. Just let them do that little adding, uh, a little project. Or you need and you need ideas, and you say, oh, look, I want an idea for this, and make them feel like they're a part of your plans. Make them feel that they're a part of what you're doing. So to have this, like I said, these are lessons that I learned, business lessons, from just raising chickens. And I hope that these lessons can be a blessing to you and help you out in your endeavors. I'm Ann Moore for MomInternet.com.